Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Nicola Donnelly, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Corporal Nikita Booth. We warmly welcome the family of Lieutenant Roger William McGee, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors to the memorial, and cadets on behalf of 6th Wing Australian Air Force cadets from South Australia. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If you require a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and in operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Roger William McGee. Roger McGee was born on the 28th of January 1915 in the farming community of Warialda in New South Wales. He was one of 3 children born to local grazier George McGee and his wife May. He received his education at the local central school and then began working at his father's farm. Roger was an active member of his community, volunteering in the local militia. In 1939, Roger purchased a property in Warialda, which he named Rawdon, and began working as a grazier like his father. Roger McGee enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force on the 26th of June 1940 in Tamworth, New South Wales. He was allocated to the 2nd 18th Battalion and was promoted to the rank of Lance Corporal. In October 1940, he was made acting corporal before moving to Bathurst for further training. In early 1941, McGee's new rank was confirmed. On the 2nd of February 1941, he embarked for active service at Sydney aboard the troop ship Queen Mary. Corporal McGee arrived in Singapore later that month and was moved to Port Dickson. In March, McGee's unit moved to Central Malaya, where he remained until May, when he was selected for officer training and returned to Singapore. McGee trained at Shanghai Barracks for several months and was commissioned as a lieutenant on the 23rd of August 1941. He remained at the base depot in Singapore before being granted a short period of leave in November 1941. The Allies' situation was quickly changed when Japan entered the war in December. Beginning their advance through the Pacific, the Japanese quickly achieved a series of sweeping victories, forcing Allied units to begin a fighting withdrawal. Lieutenant McGee was then transferred to the 2nd 19th Battalion near Johor Bahru in the wake of devastating fighting which had almost wiped out the entire battalion. There, he and 650 other reinforcements commenced training and reorganisation before crossing onto Singapore Island on the 31st of January 1942. As the Japanese began closing in, McGee's unit took up defensive positions on the island's west coast. Their platoons and sections were heavily dispersed along the extremely wide front that they were required to cover. When the Japanese landed on the 8th of February 1942, the 2nd 19th lines were quickly infiltrated by the enemy. Heavy and scattered fighting ensued in the dark as Allied units fought to hold back the enemy's advance. At some point during this desperate struggle, Lieutenant Roger McGee was killed in action. Just a week later, the Allies were forced to surrender to the Japanese on the outskirts of the city. Singapore had fallen, and thousands of McGee's comrades became prisoners of war. Lieutenant McGee remained listed as missing until after the war had ended. In May of 1946, he was officially declared to have been killed in action during the Japanese invasion of Singapore in February 1942. His parents later received a letter from his commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Anderson, who wrote, "Although Roger was only a short time with us, he was very popular with his brother officers and quickly won the affection and esteem of the men he so gallantly commanded. His company took the brunt of the landing and put up a magnificent resistance, but suffered heavy casualties. His loss was deeply mourned by all." Lieutenant McGee's final resting place was never uncovered. Today, he is commemorated on the Singapore Memorial among almost 1,500 others who have no known grave. Roger McGee was 27 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is one, but many of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Roger William McGee, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that live grow old. Age shall not weary them, as the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them. Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.